There are several big, important moves being made by both Tesla and its competitors. First, Tesla's now stopped selling the Model S and Model X in China. Why are they doing this? Is it due to tariffs or perhaps the upcoming refresh models? Second, when Tesla introduced the new, more affordable $62,000 Cybertruck that was stripped down heavily, some are wondering if that is what Tesla might do for the upcoming more affordable vehicles. Could they do the same and get a car priced at sub $30,000? Let's take a look. Third, in a shocking move, Polestar, owned by Chinese automaker Geely, has shut down its stores in China and exited its joint venture. They only sold 3,000 cars in China last year, and they need to focus on other markets. Fourth, Tesla's growing their third-party branded superchargers. Few might not realize this, but Tesla is allowing and encouraging other companies to make their own charging stations using Tesla's chargers. Fifth, Waymo has announced it will start collecting data in Tokyo, Japan. And finally, Chinese EV maker XPeng has announced its own AI chip to power their self-driving cars. Matt Hans Nelson joining us today. Welcome, Hans.
Thanks for having me, Herbert.
A few stories here. I want to get your opinion on them. Very interesting, and we don't know the full answers to these, and so let's have that discussion. The first one is a lot of people are questioning and trying to understand, why did Tesla remove the Model S and Model X? Can't buy it anymore in China. You can't go to the order configurator and choose it anymore. Now you can only buy it from inventory. I guess the assumption is once you're done with inventory, you won't be able to buy the S and X there anymore. What do you think, Hans? Some people think it's because of the tariffs, and others think that there's maybe a refresh Model S and X coming out.
Well, I think the easy answer is both. I assume that we're getting very close to an S and X refresh, and they may have been planning to stop selling this in Asian markets in the not too distant future. And then with tariffs, they just decided, okay, we're going to stop China first. And then we might see here in the not too distant future follow on announcements in some other geographies. And so, keep an eye out for that. That'll be the thing that ultimately tells us. It is possible that it could just be tariffs and that maybe this is something that's coming later in the year. But my guess is that it's really both.
Yeah. I'm one that I've been saying I don't believe that Tesla should sell the Model X and X anymore. You need the Roadster because the Roadster is it's a halo car, right? It's the fastest car. Tesla makes the greatest cars and exciting car. I think you need that, but I don't know if you need the S and X anymore. They're distracting. They're just tiny little numbers at this point. And then selling it globally. And I would think this is more tariffs. Unfortunately, fortunately, we did hear Lars say that we love the Model S and X. And it's just a recent interview. Lars Morvey, senior Tesla senior executive. And he said, we love the S and X and look out for something to come. Some people interpreted what he said that it's going to come out this year. And some said, well, don't get jump ahead. It might be next year. But he did say we are working on it. But so they're not dropping it. But I just don't think they should focus on it at all.
I guess the counter argument to my assumption that it's going to be both is that they are going to be assuming that what we see here in the next couple of months is a new, cheaper vehicle, and we can talk about what that's going to be. That is going to consume most of management's focus. So I don't know that they would do a refresh on S and X while they're doing that. So that might push an S and X refresh towards the end of the year or out into next year, to your point. And so that's definitely one possibility. And if we don't see S and X stop being sold in some other markets here in the near future, then that would be an indication that that's what's going to happen, is that they're going to wait and delay that refresh until later.
Okay, let's get to the more important thing, which is the more affordable vehicles. Now that the new Model Y has come out, okay, we spent the first 3 months shutting down factories, restarting them. We're now at scale. Okay, we should hear by next week at scale, which is 30,000 Model Ys being built per week. Now that should be happening soon. Now that that's out of the way and happening, the focus now is on the more affordable vehicles. We've had lots of discussions about this, but now that the Cybertruck was just launched, right? That happened this week, a new rear-wheel drive, long-range Cybertruck, but priced at $62,000. But the way that they lowered the price is by removing a lot of features. So people are now saying, could they do the same? And that could be what this is, a basically a stripped down Model 3 and Model Y. Those are the two more affordable vehicles, which, by the way, I've been saying I believe that that's the case. So this guy here says, calling it now, the more affordable models are stripped down Model 3s and Ys. And he said, look, we're just going to do the same thing. We're going to remove the same things that you saw that they removed in the Cybertruck, right? Textile seats, no ventilation heat, no rear screen, no HEPA filter, no light bar, rear wheel drive only, smaller battery, still tax credit eligible, standard audio systems, missing subwoofers. He thinks he can bring it down to 25,000, but really
Yep.
you only need to bring it down to $30,000 to be able to get this. And if you remember, we're starting to see these kind of spy shots of these kind of vehicles, and doesn't look any different. And by the way, why, if it is a different form factor, like a lot of people believe it's a mini Model Y. If you have a mini Model Y, like cut off the back end or something like that, or change the size, you're going to see those cars out there being tested. They need to be tested for roadworthy crash testing. They need to be tested for the camera setup for FSD. So I just don't think, and then just for me, it's like this whole idea that here we are on the verge of basically launching FSD unsupervised. We're going to go do full robo taxi programs. We're creating a
Mhm.
cyber cab. Why would you create two brand new vehicles when you don't need to anymore? This is like, just take what you've got, strip them down, sell them cheaper, and then build cyber cabs and, purposely build cars. If you're going to create a new segment, make it a purpose built robo taxi, like a robo van.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, Tesla has already shown what their natural inclination is in this area. We only have 5 models for a reason. They like to minimize complexity if at all possible. And so I think this is definitely a very likely scenario that is just going to be stripped down. And I think the reason that you see the front and the rear of that Model Y both covered is that they've made changes to both. If they didn't have the cover on the rear, it would give away. There's no light bar. If they didn't have a cover on the front, I think there's also going to be no light bar on the front. It's going to be a different headlight setup that is simpler, cheaper, and maybe not as great looking. So I think those two things, one of the points that he didn't bring up there that is a possibility for Tesla to incorporate on these cheaper versions of what I assume will be, they'll start with one, probably the Model 3 or the Model Y, and then roll out to the other. I don't think that they'll roll out cheaper versions of both at the same time. I could be wrong. But that doesn't seem to be the way that Tesla rolls. Anyways, that said, another option to take cost out of those platforms is to actually use this new process that they've talked about that they're going to be using for the cyber cab for the exterior body panels. That's going to be this injection molded plastic, the same process that's used for bumpers and front bumpers and fenders and stuff currently. And that they're going to do all of the body panels in that, and that's going to have the paint process already integrated into that injection molding. So I think they could also do that, and you could have another area for cost savings. And then, hey, if you want, the metal fancy schmancy body panels, well, then you got to pay more for the more expensive version of the 3 and Y. So there's that. In If this had been a conversation that we were having several months ago, I would have anticipated that these smaller battery packs would be LFP. Um, with the current tariff situation, I don't know that that's feasible unless we see some sort of miracle out of Giga Nevada and they can just go hog wild on LFP production using the equipment that they've purchased there from cattle. I don't think we're going to have the LFP cell capacity here in the United States, especially not that's eligible for the IRA tax credits. And so those probably will be nickel based cells for the time being until Tesla can iron out more issues with their process. But if we do see a 4680 battery with LFP and they can ramp up production of that, I think that A is obviously a great candidate for the batteries for the Cybercab, but potentially also for these lower priced stripped down 3s and Ys if that's the direction that Tesla goes for these new vehicles.
Mm-hmm. So I think it's very possible, like you just said, right, to get it to sub $30,000
Yep.
just by stripping.
And don't
Now,
forget that the Cybercab is going to have less powerful powertrain, like, it's gonna have different motors. So it's
yeah.
not only gonna be rear-wheel drive, but it's gonna be a less powerful rear-wheel drive powertrain for the Cybercab. And, yeah, if these are stripped down 3s and Ys, they will probably also have that less powerful rear-wheel drive powertrain, and those motors are cheaper, so another area to remove cost.
So, look, it's possible. Now, some people are saying they're not going to do this because you're going to basically cannibalize your Model Y and your Model 3, which are your best, Model Y specifically, it's a very best selling car. Now, one thing I've been saying that possibly they could do, which I don't think is supported by this. If you look at this looks like the new cars, looks like the new versions of the refresh. But one thing that I was thinking about that they could do is like, what if they took the legacy Model 3 and the legacy Model Y, they stripped that down even more, and that's what they sell. And so you've got these brand new refresh cars, and then you got the old cars. It's almost exactly what Apple does, right? They will take
Yeah.
a 2 year
The
old
iPhone
phone.
SE, Model
Yeah,
3.
well, it was the best selling phone 2 years ago, and then now
Yep.
they just repackage it and they sell that as a third tier for the currently you can buy a brand new one, but it's like the old phone. So in that way they already know how to build it. They know how to build it at scale, and they just move. So I don't know that
Yeah,
one.
it's
I
hard to
there's
say
no
because that old
yeah
process had a lot of extra labor involved in it that we know that the
that's
new
right.
one has lower COGS.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
the big difference, the reason that you would get savings doing that is that you've already got your capital investment, fully depreciated. And I just don't know how much that capital depreciation plays into the cost structure of these vehicles.
Hmm.
It's definitely gonna be a whole different cost structure than a phone, and so I don't know that the unit economics work out for cars in the same way that they would for electronic devices. It's not impossible, but I would say it's maybe a little bit lower likelihood because of that.
Yeah, I do too. It's just fun thought experiment. Okay, so you got people like Omar's catalog saying he doesn't believe that that's what's going to happen, a strip down, except because Tesla already sells a version of the Model 3 like this in Mexico. We know in Mexico they did strip it down. And I don't know why he says that, well, that's a reason why they wouldn't do it now. No, they've already been experimenting with it. In my opinion, the base Cybertruck and the Model 3 in Mexico don't count as new models, because that's one thing he's counting on, is that Tesla said we have new models and they're hardly more affordable. Company update in a week. So we will know in Tuesday,
Yep.
because we should know. We're all
We'll know
expecting that we
something.
might be told something within Tuesday next week. Okay. Next thing, let's go. Polestar. Whoa. They shut their stores in China. They're exiting their EV sales joint venture in China. They're out. Basically, they're scaling back their presence in China, running down its stores network, and exiting a sales and marketing joint venture with a local company. So they position themselves as a Swedish origin car maker, but that's not true. Polestar's owned by Geely. Geely's a Chinese based company, which is part of billionaire Li Shifu's auto empire. It's quite normal that we have different setups in different markets. And of course, the Chinese market is competitive. So China is too competitive. Um, although they reported 76% growth in first quarter sales, by the way, they only sold 3,000 cars in all of last year. So this is small numbers. They postponed a cash flow break even target by 2 years. Different disappointing uptake of their Polestar 3 and 4 models. So in China, they're facing fierce competition against BYD. So its purchasing app now shows only 10 locations available to arrange a test drive, compared with its China website, which still shows 36 stores. Whether or not they're moving resource away from China, we obviously have limited resource. We see a lot of growth in Europe. So they've exited a joint venture they had with this Chinese company um, that was in charge sales, customer service, and other commercial activities. Despite China being the largest market in the world for EVs, they only sold 3,000 passenger cars there. That's in China, I'm sorry, not total, but in China, they only sold that. So it's a fraction of the 44,000 it shipped globally. So it sold more. Okay, so he listed the UK and France as two other geographies where sales are growing. What do you think about what happened there?
Bada bum, bum,
Mhm.
bump. Another one bites the dust.
Yeah.
This is the reality of trying to sell cars in China, and we're hearing about this company because they're attached to a brand that we know in the West. But like you said, this is a Chinese company. This is Geely, and I think that there are like the auto market has been stimulated by the CCP such that there are Chinese auto companies going out of business all the time, and they are letting the crowned winners who seem that they're on the best footing kind of rise to the top. And BYD is kind of preeminent among those. Xiaomi, Xiaopeng are also high on the list. And if you're not one of those companies, the likelihood that you are going to survive, especially as all of this tariff nonsense really plays out and the dislocations and disruptions that that brings, it's lower. Also, Western automakers are going to face pressure too, but at least they have their governmental protections that are probably going to try to soften those blows to a certain extent. So I would expect the Japanese government, the government in Germany, to some degree, the government in the United States, to actually try and soften the blows of tariffs on those companies individually. In China, the same will be true for the big important ones, but it will not be true for most of the rest of the automakers. And remember, there are hundreds of automakers in China, and it's going to be very, very, very difficult for those companies to survive. And then for any, even, I think the same thing is actually kind of true in the West or the rest of the world, that if you are not one of these strategically important automakers, you're not going to get
Mhm.
support, and not getting support during this time when things are very difficult could spell disaster.
Sounds like it too. That's my guess as well. China is supporting a lot of suppliers, or supporting BYD, too big to fail. They're supporting a lot of companies there. Maybe Polestar is just one of those that are smaller. Like they didn't go for
Well,
that.
and
Yeah.
from a branding standpoint, if you're Chinese, do you care if it's Polestar? Like, you don't like, what does it matter if it's, Swedish design inspired versus local? And maybe there is a national pride. You're like, this company's owned
Yeah.
by Geely. What do we need the Swedish part for? Let's just buy the Geely. And Geely's actually
Mhm.
doing okay in China. So yeah, this is just
Yeah.
part of
I think
the
that's what
market
it is.
contraction.
Makes sense. Okay, the next segment here, I did not know this. I'm sure a few people realize this, but Tesla is supporting third-party branded superchargers. So there's these third-party branded Tesla version 4 superchargers that are starting to pop up. EV on the move. It's becoming a thing. EV on the move. UK, right? So you can see how this works. It says say Tesla on the screen, right? It is a Tesla supercharger, but they just brand it themselves, which makes sense because Tesla makes the best superchargers. Don't make it yourself, brand it yourself, manage it yourself, sell it yourself, negotiate where you want to put it. But it's you get the best of all things. You do need to use the Tesla app, by the way, if you can read this closely. Tesla plug and charge, Tesla app, then you tap to pay. So it's just much easier to use, I'm sure. There's 100+ version 4 supercharge. This is in March, owned by EG on the Move. More to come. They're run on Tesla hardware, software, and service, and are open to all EV makes. Our customers love it now that Tesla is becoming the standard. Here's some beautiful photos of this. This is clearly not a Tesla at all, and still it works for them. You got Teslas here on this case, beautifully designed, but it's, these are gas station partnerships. I'm sure let them do the negotiation, let them pay for it, and let them set up, but want to. So Max Ziegler, Diziger, who runs the supercharger Tesla business unit, he said this: "We want to be helpful to businesses that invest in charging. There's still too much waste in capex and opex in charging, combined with poor experiences. They really do need to help. No one's done this better than Tesla and everyone else. There's just so many, down, like you'd go to a charger and it's broken. You can't even charge it." Now, this is a very interesting statement. He said a lot more, like he thinks about 30 times good infrastructure needs to be built to achieve 100% EV adoption. 30 times. It gives you a sense of the magnitude. The culprit is often a mix of different hardware, software, and service providers. This increases the cost stack, complexity, and finger pointing over accountability. Tesla offers an all in one solution as an option. With Tesla hardware, software, and service, we operate the largest global network and offer what we've proven works. All superchargers come with a maniacal focus on customer experience, including 24/7 monitoring, Tesla service technicians, and software updates. There's nothing compared to that. Software and charging is challenging, constantly evolving, which is why some large charging station management software providers have stopped operating in recent months. Concerning trend, superchargers sold to third parties include the latest Tesla firmware, plug and charge, down post notifications, site outage, blah, 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 everything. So he's basically saying hardware, software, service, with these other partners, they need to outsource all of this versus Tesla. They vertically integrate it. You just partner with one company. Yeah, so that is great news. I personally have tried these third parties, and I can't even figure out the app and the charging. I want to use it. That's if it's working. It just takes forever to set up all that accounts. Just doesn't make sense. Here, you just open up a Tesla app. Once you've done it once, it works anywhere.
Yeah. I mean, Tesla's advantage here is that they have vertically integrated this. They've gotten, it's the same issue that someone like Ford has when they're just trying to do software in their car that Jim Farley has talked about, that you've got too many suppliers and this supplier uses this software, that supplier uses that software, and we don't really have the rights to edit those pieces of
Yeah.
software, and then they have to talk to each other and it just gets to be a whole mess, and then of course it just ruins the customer experience. And Tesla has built this technology from the ground up, and the points there about all hardware, software, payments, like all of it, all together is super seamless. And then so you take that and say, okay, they've got the best solution, period, bar none. And it costs less to install, it costs less to operate, it has better maintenance and reliability. Then you look at these other solutions and they're just not that at all. Terrible experience. It makes sense that Tesla would want to go ahead and start selling these to other people. And then I think that's part of what has come out of the complete restructuring of the supercharging team that we saw. A lot of
Mm,
the people get
mhm,
canned. I think they were really pursuing a strategy that was too reliant on Tesla being the only installer of these units. And so I think this is something that's come out of that, that I think there's probably a limited number of supercharger stations that Tesla wants to both own and operate. And then that 30 times number growth that Max cited, I am guessing that that is based on roughly a 3% penetration of EVs in the global fleet. And so if we're going to have to grow the percentage of the fleet that is EV by 30 times in order to get
mhm.
100% penetration, then you need 30 times the charging capacity that we have now, which is a lot. And you do want more of these convenience stores to be able to have, like, let's use the infrastructure that's already available on from a real estate standpoint, from a convenience standpoint for customers. And wouldn't it be great if every single time you wanted to go to your local convenience store to get something, there was an EV charging stall there for you? And not only was it there, it was actually Tesla hardware that was reliable. It had the uptime, it had the user experience, it's easy to pay. So I think this is the best solution. Like, I don't care whose brand name is on it as long as I can use it. And then this is much more efficient from Tesla's standpoint because they are getting to sell that hardware to whoever these companies are going to be, and it'll be some third party like this EV on the go company. That it looks like that station was a BP related station. I don't know
Mhm,
if EV on the go is related to BP or not, but it might
mhm,
be. Like, I think that sovereign wealth funds or energy companies will be interested in kind of building up this infrastructure, just like they've made investments in third party charging in the past, and those have failed. I don't know that they've necessarily will want to just abandon the category as a whole, but they might want to abandon the suppliers that have they've used in the past that haven't worked and move towards these stations that are designed, built, manufactured, and then serviced by Tesla. And then Tesla doesn't have to outlay the capital upfront to go install those. They just have to build a much smaller footprint of service capability. And while it will be a big lift to service that many superchargers, by Tesla's point, it's going to be a much smaller lift than actually having to pay the price for the capital and then the real estate to grow that network by that 30x number.
Hmm. I think you're right. That makes a lot of sense. Good comment there. I think that you're right that the Tesla employees, you don't have to have Tesla employees that go and scour and locations and negotiate. Let's get another party do that. But we'll still take our technology. And what we do, Tesla, is they make these cabinets as fast as possible, drop it, just build and drop, right?
It's almost the reverse
Install
McDonald's.
quickly.
Let other people handle the real estate and we'll just
Yeah.
handle the hamburgers.
Yeah. This is great. So I'm happy that they're doing this, and this is the fastest way to grow to 30,000. I wonder though, what's going to happen when they want to have, instead of the superchargers, they want to have wireless pads for robotaxi. I'm sure it's the same thing. They'll just make a different form factor, right?
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see what the hardware looks like. We know that where it will land is a very efficient design that works well, and it'll have, the same customer user experience benefits that we love. It'll take Tesla a while to land on exactly what that looks like and what installation of that looks like and what service of that looks like. They'll iterate that all probably internally for the most part. And so there will probably be a season where the Tesla owned superchargers in select locations have those, but there are no third party locations that have those wireless charging pads until the technology is fully debugged end to end and they're ready. And then at some point in the future, then they'll allow third party companies who are buying their supercharging infrastructure to add that wireless technology to those as well.
Okay, let's move on. Next one here is Waymo. We've got Waymo's announced that it will start collecting data in Tokyo, Japan next week with test drives operated by human drivers. This is the first time Waymo will be using its cars on public roads outside US. And just to be clear, what they're doing is they've partnered with a taxi company. Here you go. And a software company. They're going to map the streets. So they probably have, a few taxis out there with some of the lidars attached to it. They're going to start mapping the streets using our manually driven cars. So these cars are still manually driven by taxi drivers with Waymo tech across 7 Tokyo wards. This is their first few kilometers on international roads. So they drop this kind of imagery, right? You can see it's crazy. Look at how big that thing is. My God. Oh, huge that thing they put on top. They have to put that on top of all these cars. But you can see that these are the different words out there, prefix, I guess. So, yeah, I mean, the joke that Tesla investors are saying, or they're pointing out that here we are, Waymo's very much celebrating. We've got Tokyo. We've got now mapping Tokyo. And
Mhm.
meanwhile, FSD is launched in China. It's launched in, Puerto Rico and Mexico, and we're like going continent by continent.
Yeah, about
We're
to be
about
in
to launch
Europe.
in Europe.
Yeah. So, I mean, it is a milestone for Waymo. I think that it's great to see this technology continuing to evolve and expand. I would rather be in Waymo's shoes and making this slow and steady progress than GM or a number of the. I'd rather be Waymo than most Chinese car companies, honestly. Um, does that mean Waymo's going to win? I think that's going to be a challenge, especially like just the scalability of Tesla's solution as it is proven to be able to work is going to be very, very, very big hill to climb for Waymo. But there's enough other car companies that need an autonomy solution that if Tesla, as not if, as Tesla shows that this software is capable of these things, that they might be able to be a fast follower and start to adopt a LiDAR light software stack. We don't know if that's what they will actually do. We'll just have to watch and see. I
Mm.
have not been impressed by the management culture and their vision. And I certainly have not been impressed by Sundar Pichai. I know I'm kind of an outspoken person and thinking that he is among the worst CEOs in the Mag 7. Not among, he is the worst CEO in the Mag 7 right now. Well, him and Tim Cook are kind of
You can't say
trading
that about
blows.
Tim Cook.
Oh,
Okay.
yes, I can.
First of all, I disagree with what you're saying about Waymo, by the way, just FYI. So I think that these companies like Waymo, they started too early and then they chose the wrong horse. They've invested in LiDAR by itself, not a big deal, but it just flips your business model. And the
They
worst
have
part
to
about
break out
it,
of the sunk cost fallacy if they're going to pursue that strategy, and that's why, yeah, I don't see them actually doing that. They have the possibility to do that with a good management change, but yeah, that's
sure,
what it will take.
but they haven't done that. But even worse than that is the fact that they slowed them down in trying to get to neural nets. It's not the lidar is a sensor, but it gave you the false feeling that you can now drive safely in a location, but you need the neural net to actually get to true robo taxi and to do it at lowest cost. And so companies like Waymo who have not invested in the neural net pathway, it's a slowed them down. So I think it's a false thing. They can go and show, oh look, I've got a little pilot here, here, here. Doesn't mean that they can run a profitable robotaxi business. That they can right now. Why do they still charge the same amount as Uber? Why can't they lower that price yet? When will they be able to do that? When can it drive like an Uber? So companies like XPeng here, they're making the right moves. You've got them announcing that they're using their own AI chip now to power their self-driving cars this quarter. They've developed their own AI chip, semi-autonomous cars, with a first mass production model to be fitted with a Turing chip from as early as this quarter. The chip, which is claimed to be more powerful than NVIDIA's Drive, would be used in all its production models. So they didn't just outsource it to NVIDIA; they decided to make their own. The chip could also power flying cars and robots being developed by its affiliated companies. Our chips will be seen in our cars all over the world in the future. We hope traffic rules in Hong Kong and other overseas markets will allow our cars with autonomous driving systems to take the streets sometime next year. It did not disclose which EV model would start using its self-defined chip. So this is the path. You need to follow Tesla, what they did here, create your own AI chip. If you decide not to do your AI chip, fine, pay NVIDIA for it, massive money, but at least start your own neural net program. So I don't know, more companies need to start doing this. And they are, by the way. There's at least 3 or 4 Chinese companies that have started doing this. And that's where I'm saying to you that Waymo,
Yeah.
I think it's a dead end.
Yeah, well, this is definitely the right path, and people who are too slow to recognize it and move aggressively down it are in for a rude awakening.
Yeah. Okay. So that's Waymo and Xiaopeng, do different paths. And that's what we'll need to see who's going to end up winning. Or the question is who's not going to win. It's like who's going to be able to be able to first launch a business model for robo taxi that works sooner. So what would you do, right? Would you drop all the investment you did with LiDAR, stop these like city by city rollouts, start almost all over again, like Xiaopeng and others? I think you should. We'll see.
Yeah.
What do you think? Yeah.
They I mean, at the very least, they have to invest in the data, like, I I don't know what their ability to collect camera data is right now, and how different that is from what they do with LiDAR, but they need to be moving towards video sensors and then AI data processing capability quickly. Um, like we don't
Yeah.
have a supercluster, like a Waymo supercluster, and they, you know, their onboard chips are also lacking and not impressive. So, that's why something like what Xiaopeng is doing is much more on the path. So if you don't see at least better chips and better training infrastructure, then you know that they're not moving in the right direction. Um, and I think that's a bare minimum. So beyond
Mm-hmm.
that, how much do they have to go towards pure video? Like it may be possible to do sensor fusion if you can get your lidar down cheap enough. It's going to be harder, but maybe not impossible. You may not have to
I mean,
go
look at this,
pure
look at
vision.
this, Hans.
I
How
know.
many years have I been doing this, and it's still this big giant thing? Meanwhile, every single Tesla that Tesla makes, every single vehicle they make with the existing $25 cameras are capable of robo taxi. And then you've got companies like Polestar who are competing and they're dying. And so that's what we'll start seeing with these guys too. We'll see just a few survive. Thank you so much, Hans. It's always great to have that conversation with you, especially in these kind of topics. Follow Hans on his YouTube channel if you want to see some deep dive analysis. This is the guy. He knows FSD, Robotaxi. He knows that really well. Thank you. Check him out on his YouTube channel, Hansi Nelson. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye. I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.